Welcome to Breaking the News Plus on this Monday night. It has been a doozy of a 24 hours in Republican politics in the state of Minnesota because a lot of Republicans got the candidate they've been waiting for to jump in the governor's race, including our next guest who was wanting that candidate. Joining me now, political strategist for the Republican Party, Amy Frederickson. You may think this is Amy Koch, but in the last few weeks she's told me she's become Amy Frederickson. Mazel tov on your marriage, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, hi, Clint.
Well, it's such awesome news for you and a blessing for your family, and probably a blessing to you. In the times we have talked about who should run for governor against Tim Walz, your wish upon a star was Lisa Demuth, and she made your wish come true.
She jumped in. Technically, she released a video yesterday morning that made it clear she was running. She did a press conference this morning. She is in. So the Speaker of the House, so she's the first woman GOP Speaker of the House. She is the first person of color, the first Black woman, the first Black person to be Speaker of the House. Just a lot of firsts that she knocked out of the park. And now she could be our first female governor and first governor of color as well. It's a very exciting time. But also, she's just wonderful. She's smart. She's like really great at the job, hard worker. You want to hang out with her. There's just a lot of really great things, and certainly has the experience that's needed to guide the state. So it's going to be quite a race between current Governor Walz and who I think will likely be on the ballot, Lisa Demuth.
Yeah, and we'll get to that next point. I want to know, from you're no stranger to Minnesota Republican politics. Why was Speaker Demuth your top choice? We talked about the other candidates. There's plenty of other candidates like Kristen Robbins in the race, also a female. But you have a level of excitement for Lisa Demuth, it seems, that surpasses the others.
Right. Well, so we have a couple folks like Kendall Qualls and Scott Jensen. They ran before the last time around. Scott Jensen was the Republican candidate on the ballot, lost by 8 points, I think was his final numbers. And I just think, look, Governor Walz got huge name ID. He has an amazing fundraising ability. Like, he is a formidable candidate and opponent, and Republicans have not won statewide in almost 20 years, since 2006 and former Governor Pawlenty. So you can't have a C candidate or a B minus candidate. You got to have an A candidate. Now, Representative Robbins, I really like her. She's the chair of the fraud committee on a state level. Suburban, the Republicans have been hemorrhaging suburban voters. She clicks a lot of boxes. But Speaker Demuth has just been out there. She's been raising the money. She's been, her name ID is going to be bigger. It's just, this was the candidate. I mean, as you said, I've been talking to you for months going, yeah, but what if Speaker Demuth got in?
Right. And you're not the only one in the party that has said that, holding out that what if for that person to run for this party, endorsement. So let's get into that part, because that's a little bit convoluted. Speaker Demuth, as a Republican, and there are several other Republicans, is going to seek the party endorsement. That is given to whichever candidate in March. And then there's a primary between all of these candidates. She seemed to skate closer to the line of I will abide by the endorsement, but not saying that she'll necessarily live or die by it. So what does this endorsement really mean? I mean, is it something that clearly Speaker Demuth wants it? Does she have to have it? Do you think it matters? Should we get rid of it because it's kind of unclear where everybody stands on it?
Well, I like the endorsement. So what happens is this whole process from February actually to May, where delegates, party faithful, go to their caucuses and they go to their BPOU convention, and then they get elected to the state convention. And there's usually a couple thousand Republicans that get together and say, hey, we would like to endorse this candidate. It happens on the Democrat side as well, on the DFL side. The difference is the DFL has not in the primary had the non-endorsed candidate win the last several times around. Governor Walz, when he first ran in 2018, was not endorsed, but did win the primary. Governor Dayton, prior to him, was not the endorsed candidate and did win the primary. But with the Republicans, it hasn't happened. We have not had, since Arnie Carlson, that was a whole different animal in 1990. But we have not had a candidate that was not endorsed win the primary. A great example is in 2018, former Governor Pawlenty ran. He met with delegates, but he made very clear he was going right to a primary. Jeff Johnson was endorsed, and Jeff Johnson actually soundly won that primary against former Governor Pawlenty with all that name ID and a huge fundraising advantage. So it will be very interesting. So that's why I think, I'm good with the endorsement. I just think we should have an earlier primary. We right now have for the presidents, we have March primary. We have an August primary for everybody else. That's really late and makes us kind of irrelevant in the process. And it's really close to the election time.
Yeah.
So what I would recommend is just moving everything up to a March primary. That still doesn't negate the endorsement. The endorsement and the conventions can still happen. But I think a primary should be moved up. That's what I think.
Well, Lisa Demuth probably has a decent amount of name recognition in Minnesota because she was the Speaker of the House and did her role really well for the Republican Party in caucus, but then had a lot of statewide recognition also because it was a brutal legislative session in which Lisa Demuth had to work side by side, hand in hand with Melissa Hortman, where they kind of shared that job. And obviously with what happened to Melissa and her political assassination makes it just all the more tragic. But that Lisa showed she could work with Melissa with dignity and respect, get a budget done. Right. And then since Melissa's murder, really was gracious in speaking of her former friend and how much that shook her. So I think a lot of people got to know Lisa Demuth after that horrible tragedy as well.
I don't think there's any way that this year couldn't have been so life-changing for Speaker Demuth. It's hard to imagine, and as a former Senate Majority Leader, during very difficult times and tumult, I can identify some, but to come into a session with a 67-67 split, to have to work hand in hand, to come out of that, by the way, with true respect for each other, she and former Speaker Hortman, they truly worked together very well, very respectful. Yeah, they mixed it up, they disagreed, but very respectful. And then to end that session and very shortly after, have that person have the awful assassination. There's just no way it couldn't have just hasn't had a deep impact and contributed to her being a better and stronger leader in so many ways.
Yeah, and I'm sure she'll, talk about that if asked. But, one of the things that you first said was about Speaker Demuth's identity as a female and as a Black woman, and that would put her in some significant first categories. But what's interesting about Speaker Demuth, at least to me, is that she doesn't deny the history that she would be making. She just doesn't lead with it, nor does she bring it up. She had to be that had to get coaxed out of her. And the same with her relationship to Speaker Hortman. She carries her cards close to the vest. She's not a flashy Republican. And I only say that because on the national stage, we see so many in both parties that are just me, social media this, social media that. She's not like that. So what kind of Republican is she? Is she a MAGA Republican? Is she a Reagan Republican? Is she somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I think she's somewhere in the middle. If you hear about her life story, she grew up, she's just a lifelong Minnesotan. And she's got that sort of Minnesotan kind of, I always say sort of fiscal common sense, a little bit of a libertarian in so many ways, just leave me be, let me live my life. We've got a deep sense of community and a deep sense of helping each other out. And I think you see that with her. She served on the school board for many years, and in fact in Rocori. And so even, when Annunciation happened, I said, look, she was not on the school board at the time, but her kids were in that school. I think that there's a deal for her and Governor Walz and the DFL to cut here because she understands. Who better to understand? And so I just think what you see, I think people are desperate for the kind of politician that is, whether it's Speaker Hortman, because the same what was often said about her. She was just in there getting the job done. And I think these two women found each other and found true, like, let's just, here we are, let's just get this done. And so I think people are craving that.
If you are the Walz campaign, does this candidate scare you more than the others?
Oh, 100%. I believe this is the candidate that they were, would be concerned about getting in. Still going back to Governor Walz has got tremendous name ID, a huge pulpit, a national fundraising ability, and a huge lead in fundraising. So all of those things are still true. And so they've got to feel good about that. But there's also, and we've talked about this on the show too, whether it's the massive amounts of fraud that's gone down in Minnesota, whether it's just the third term in general, whether, or if you're talking about sort of, a big budget surplus that became a budget deficit and what happened to that, and even a very, public national run for vice president. There's a lot of, there are also some vulnerabilities that have not been really a part of the Walz campaign before that are now. And I do think that Speaker Demuth, and this is going back to Representative Robbins as well, that they're very well positioned to speak to, because Lisa Demuth, they had a front row seat to all of the discussions around fraud, waste, and abuse in the last couple of years, or to the budget discussions, and all of those things. And so I think where the governor has some vulnerabilities that maybe haven't existed before in other races, certainly these candidates are particularly well positioned to address them.
You had always said it's going to take at least, at minimum, a year to do this. I looked it up. It's 1 year from today is that election. So I guess she got it in right under the wire. What's important for Lisa Demuth to do? Is it name recognition? Is it fundraising? Is it all of the above? It's
all of the above. It's having worked on some statewide campaigns, the amount of money that you have to raise and the time it takes to do that, particularly because Minnesota has very strict small amounts of money that can be relatively small amounts of money that can be raised from each individual. You have got to be on that phone dialing for dollars. You have to bake time into your schedule every single day. So on top of having to run around the state, and she will continue to be the speaker. Now, she did say in her statement that of course, other members of the caucus are going to step up and lead, but she's still got to get through another session and make sure that the caucus is guided through that. So she has got, I do not envy her schedule in the least. But she did get in just in time. I think you and I said November is really where I feel like the drop dead. She's made it. She's here. And I suspect she's going to spend, is going to get, the one thing that she'll probably lack is sleep.
Yeah.
That's what I've
Any campaign for statewide office in 2026 is going to be a campaign where one sleeps very little and asks for money very lots. Yes. But Lisa Demuth now in the race, to all analysts, not just Amy Frederickson, a name that a lot of Republicans wanted to see get in the race. And you made a very, very good point that we should focus on and talk about again sometime, is that Speaker Demuth is going to remain in the House. So she's going to have basically two jobs. She's going to run while working this job, probably because of such of a divided legislature. You want to hold on to a seat as a party and not give it up.
Speakership.
Yeah.
Well, and the speakership itself, that was a very carefully negotiated deal to make her the speaker specifically. And if she would step down, I would anticipate that the DFL would say, okay, well, that's no longer the deal, right? And so I think for so many reasons, no, she must stay at the speaker position.
All right. Well, Speaker Demuth has a lot on her plate for the next year to the day. Amy, former Koch, Frederickson, thank you for being on Breaking the News Plus and breaking this down for us. Again, congrats to you from everyone here in the BTN family. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's all for us on the Plus. I'll catch you tomorrow night. Take care.